And thank you to Supervisor Bury for co-chairing this subcommittee with me, and thank you especially to Chairman Morrell for giving us this very important task, and to all of the committee members present, Gary Bartlett, Bill Hughes, Dave Hall, Supervisor Bury, and myself, 6 of us. And thank you to D.A. Chaika for joining us, Chairman Morrell, and Sherry as our fearless clerk. Thank you, Sherry, as well as the other supervisors joining us today, and Captain Bray. So Supervisor Bury, introductions of the 6 committee members?
I think you just did.
Were we going to take a minute for each person to introduce themselves?
All right,
or?
I'll do that. All right, Mr. Graziano, would you please introduce yourself? Tell us about your background. You're muted.
You're on mute, Gary. Oh, we lost him.
All right. Why don't we go with Mr. Hughes?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Bury. Hi, Bill Hughes, served on the Columbia County Board of Supervisors for 10 years, as 8 of those as minority leader. I was co-chair of the reform panel previously, and I'm now back to work on the implementation panel.
We're glad to have you. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Much appreciated. Mr. Graziano, you are muted. You got to click the microphone on the bottom of your screen. There should be a microphone, a red microphone. Okay, maybe 3rd time is a charm. Mr. Hall.
Hi, I'm really honored to be asked to serve on this, and I hope I serve well. I was on the police reform panel and was glad to be part of that. I'm a musician and a writer, and I have a little bit of a background in committees such as this, steering committees and planning committees, often around diversity. And so I'm glad to be part of this, and I'm hoping we can and that we can implement to the satisfaction of everyone.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Mr. Graziano, have we straightened out the issue with the mute? Okay, I think he's still working on that. Sheriff Bartlett.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I've been with the Sheriff's Office 37 years. I was honored to be part of the committee that put everything together, and I'm glad that we're working on this, and we're going to come out with some good things. And I want to thank everybody who has taken their time out to assist us with this.
Thank you, Sheriff. Looking forward to working with you on this. Mr. Graziano, I can see you're now not muted.
I think I got it. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm presently Vice President of Human Resources for a local company here in Columbia County. Past Police Commissioner, starting back in 2002. I served approximately 8 years as PC of HPD. I'm also certified private investigator, certified by the Department of State, and I owned a company called Hudson Investigative and Security Services, as well as a payroll human company called Hudson Valley Resource Group.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Graziano, for being with us.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Hoatling, introduction.
I am Tistria Hoatling from the town of New Lebanon, and I am very honored to be a part of the police reform process as well as the implementation committee now. And I also just wanted to acknowledge Sheriff Bartlett's willingness to come here and work with us as an implementation committee. I think it's really important that he's so open to looking at, all of the policies and what is there and what we're doing great, what can potentially improve. And I just also wanted to kind of do an acknowledgement that the focus of this group is law enforcement, but it's certainly not about specific officers, and that, systemic racism and things that we're looking at is across healthcare and, the court systems and access to services. And so while we're focused right now on this piece of that process, I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work that each and every day putting their lives on the line, and that this process coming to the table and talking is not at all an attack on our officers or on the job that they're doing, but really looking at systemically what's there, what can be improved upon, and making sure that at the forefront of this conversation is obviously our community members and also our police officers, and that the goal really should be to make sure that we're supporting both and doing the best that we can. So I just wanted to open with that statement.
Thank you. I'm Robert Bury. I'm the supervisor for the town of Germantown for the past 3+ years. Prior to that, I was a town justice here for 9 years. I'm also retired from Germantown Central School, where for about 15 years I was involved with their crisis management plan. And I learned the value of partnership with law enforcement in that role, how important it is to have a dialogue so that everybody understands what the expectations are, the limits are, and how we can work together to make the environment for everybody. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of this panel, and I look forward to working with all of you.
And Supervisor Bury, before we get to the next agenda item, could I just do a little bit of housekeeping, especially for members of the public that are watching, some of our conversation that we had regarding what this committee does and that we're a subcommittee of the Public Safety Committee. I just wanted to kind of lay that out so the public is clear that the Education Committee is an advisory committee to the Public Safety Committee. And so everything that we're discussing here as this subcommittee will then go in front of the Public Safety Committee for further discussion, and then of course to the full Board of Supervisors. And I think that it's important to know that, you know, this committee in and of itself is really here to come up with ideas and present them on to the Public Safety Committee. And all of the meetings will be open via YouTube for the public to view, as well as any supervisors that want to join in through the Google Meets. So that was just a bit of housekeeping.
Very good points. Thank you for making them. Shall we get to setting our standing meeting date? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
Do we want to?
Yes.
Rob,
So for
you're
the
on mute.
sixth subcommittee,
Okay, sorry.
Kelly, did you say something?
No, I thought you were talking, Rob. I saw you moving your lips and I couldn't hear you, so you were on mute, but I realized that Tistria was talking. I'm so sorry about
I was
that.
talking to myself. It's okay. All right,
So
so
for
what do we
this-
think about a standing?
I prefer like the 9 to 3 window if there's any way to have during working hours as opposed to evening meetings. But if that doesn't work for others, then I'm open to other things as well.
That works for me.
Looks to me too.
It
Sheriff
works
Bartlett?
for me too. I have kind of a spotty daily schedule, but I'm sure we can find a regular spot that works for me.
Okay.
Sheriff Bartlett?
Yeah, I just have to see what's going on as far as during the day. I'm readily available besides other.
We make the best plans right now, but we don't know. Mr. Hughes, what about you?
What day of the week are we talking?
Not yet.
Just
so you could
time.
let us know days that work for you during the.
Okay.
What days work
So
for
I could
you?
do, I could do 9 to 3, but anything after 3 on Tuesdays will not work, and not Fridays at all.
Yeah, I don't want Friday, Saturday, or Sunday myself.
Oh, that would be great. Monday to Thursday would work great for Dave Hall as well.
Okay. So since we're starting on a Tuesday, why don't we stick with the Tuesdays for now? Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
And this makes, yeah, it makes sense to do it also in the early, are we meeting once a month or twice a month?
I
Once
think
a month?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
and early in the month.
would the first Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. work for everyone, just like today?
Works for me.
Yes.
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 Barry, 1 p.m. on the first Tuesday of each month?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
that was easy.
You want to take the next one, Tistria?
Sure. So thank you so much to Sherry. Sherry is going to be our fearless clerk through this process. And one thing she was able to do, and I realize the subcommittee members just got this today, so it may be something that we touch on briefly and then continue to the next meeting for a more in-depth discussion. But she did go through the police reform document and pulled out the action items, so to speak, anything that was talked about, to be worked on, to be continued. And she laid it out in this document. We wanted to talk about, what our action items were, what the order of importance as far as priorities. Supervisor Bury and I both agreed that the body camera policy should be our first action item to really dig into, because the body cameras are in use and there was a temporary policy adopted by the Board of Supervisors. So I guess first, Supervisor will be our first.
I think so. That seems to be the most pressing issue for us. I'm assuming that we have not heard back from New York State on the proposal that the county submitted. So I'm not sure what value there would be going forward with anything that we haven't heard back on at this point. All right. So I agree. The cameras should be the first.
Sheriff Bartlett, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, and I just wanted to reinforce the fact that this implementation committee, as far as policies and procedures, are recommendations to me and my agency. And then there are policies, and we're the ones that ultimately adopt them. So we're setting the groundwork with that. We're open to suggestions. We're open to ideas, absolutely, and for things to change. But at the end of the day, we're the ones that are adopting these policies and implementing these policies, not the Board of Supervisors. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everybody on it.
Absolutely.
I
Thank you.
think it's clear to everybody. Yeah. And we're just going to give you some thoughts that people have pulled together, and you can do what you will.
And we're more than welcome, and we absolutely welcome all these thoughts and ideas.
Gary?
Yes, is that policy something we'll get ahead of time to review before the next meeting?
Yeah. So what? Oh, go ahead, Sherry.
I think we've got it on the website, actually. It's on the police reform website, but Gary, I can send it to you.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
You probably should send that out.
Gary, it's on the police
Send that out
reform
to all the
website, and it's also on the state website. It's the state adopted policy for New York State DCJ SMPTC policies and procedures. That's where we got it from, right from there.
Okay, thanks.
And I
If
wonder,
you could,
so one of the, oh, go ahead, Bill.
No, I'm gonna say if she could just send it out to the full committee so we know what we're working on.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
And I had a suggestion as well that you might send along as well. At the initial meeting of the Public Safety Committee for the temporary body camera policy, Supervisor Chimidi's document that's entitled Columbia County Body Camera Policy Supplement. And I know there were a lot of good points in here discussions on, and I know Sheriff Bartlett, you and I have talked a little offline about some of them. And I think that might be a good place to start, to go line by line of some of his suggestions, to talk about the pros, the cons, which direction we want to go in. So if everyone was open to it, I would ask Sherry, and if you don't have it, Sherry, I can forward it along, to send both the temporary adopted policy and the recommendations that Supervisor Chimidi sent, that we could start as a, again, Sheriff Bartlett, at the end of the day, policies are your department. But it really did line out some points of areas where we might want to have further conversations. The outcome of those conversations we won't know until we have them, but at least to start the dialogue and give us kind of a 1, 2, 3 of points to discuss. Would everyone be open to using that as a guiding document for our initial conversation?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Sherry, if you don't have that, I'll send it along to you, and if you can send the committee members both the adopted temporary policy and the document Supervisor Chimidi's provided.
I have it all. I'm sending it out right now.
Thank you very much.
You got it.
So one thing Supervisor Bury and I talked about was waiting on, so I think it's great that Sherry did this document. I think it's great eventually to have a document that guides our work, what we're focusing on, what our, first sector business is. But Supervisor Bury brought up the point that until New York State kind of approves the plan we submitted, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to make a work plan until we know maybe they're going to adjust some things or ask us to change some things. So if we start with body camera policy, I see that taking at least a few meetings with the hopes that we'll have back that approval from the state. And Chairman Morrell, have we heard anything as far as when to expect a response?
No, we have not. I can call Sam Parker, who's, by the way, he's on his honeymoon right now, but I can ask him if there's any progress in terms of approval. I did have my hand up just for the fact I just wanted to remind everyone, and I know you probably realize this, but at the last, excuse me, at the last meeting we had, formal meeting we had, we discussed in terms of the body cam policy, having the district attorney's office and the public defender's office involved in that process because, obviously they would be integral in in discussing what's acceptable and not acceptable in terms of the body cams.
Absolutely. And PH Heike, is it okay if we include you and the public defender on the email document with both the temporary policy as well as the supplement policy that we'll review at the next meeting?
Of course, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sherry. If you can send it on to DH Heike and Shane Zoni as well.
If I could I ask Tricia?
Yeah.
So us moving forward, waiting for a response from the state, is that on all other topics? Because I think there are some topics, regardless of what the state says, that we may be able to move on. For example, data. And I know there's other comments about that, but I just know there's things that we did have outlined in our policy that, regardless of what the state says, we can start looking into them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think if we start with body camera policy and we still don't have an answer from the state when we feel like we're, finishing up on that, then I think we naturally should start next. Data, I think, is one of the top ones that I know Sheriff Bartlett talked about being completely open to assistance in data compilation and tracking and maybe even some outside assistance there. So I think that's a great idea. Dave, your hand is raised.
Yes, regarding data collection, that's one of the things that was kind of on the top of my personal list, just because I know as an Arab American, we don't really fall into any racial groups. We've been working for our own category on the census and in other forms for quite a while. So I would really be interested to know, how data is collected presently and how we can improve that. It's been very difficult for governmental agencies to do anything but follow the census department. I've had some luck with, and others in my community have had some luck in getting hospitals and other businesses and things to include a category that would include us. But I think because we have a brown-skinned community here that doesn't really fall into the census categories, that we might want to make sure our data is as accurate as possible.
I absolutely 100% agree. I 100% agree with that. And also, I do know a lot of our data sets, we really don't track ethnicity. And so as we keep that in mind, as we are building our tool, we're thinking about building a tool that we are mindful about tracking ethnicity. And the point that Dave brought up, we really do have a large Muslim population that is really growing in Columbia County, and they're from all aspects of the around the world, whether it's Pakistan, Bangladesh, or what have you. So as we're tracing the the ethnic groups that are really prominent that we know of here, just expand it to other ethnic groups would be certainly a benefit as well.
Chairman Morrell, did you still have your hand up, or is that from before?
That's from before, sorry.
No worries, thank you. And I wonder too, one of the things that I would love to see, I know that it was talked a lot about at the public hearing, is some measurable goals and goalposts, right? So just to say, like, we're going to work on data or we're going to work on this thing without having at least some definition of, you know, in the next X amount of time or with this sort of path. And I'm wondering if this implementation committee at some point could, you know, work with the document Sherry already compiled, and it has a follow-up who/when, and really try to put in, you know, nothing that is set in stone. Obviously, if we say, you know, we think body camera policy should be able to be developed in the next, you know, 3 to 4 months, it might take longer if we have conversations or, you know, points that we need to research more, but at least some sort of outline of, you know, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we're expecting by around here. And I also, when I look at who/when, a lot of these are listed as sheriff. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of them do come down to the sheriff's discretion, which is important to remember. But I also want to make sure we're not putting a ton of extra work on him and his department being short-staffed right now. So even if it says sheriff, you know, Sheriff Bartlett, if you're able and willing to put some of the legwork onto this committee or different committee members, and we could leave meetings with tasks. I'm going to research data traps and third parties that might be able to support, so that we're not saying to Sheriff Bartlett, hey, in addition to being understaffed right now, we also need to make sure that you're entering all this data. You know, maybe that means that we need a specific person at the sheriff's office that's just data, and the Board of Supervisors is going to need to have a conversation about how to fund that. Or maybe it means that we need to contract with someone. And so I think it's important, while all of these things are really important and we need to get them done, that we're also not just saying, here's 7 more things that the sheriff's office needs to do. And so I think that there should be some conversation about all the tasks, when we think they should be accomplished, who's going to do some of the legwork and the research to then come back to this committee to have Sheriff Bartlett weigh in, as opposed to all of that falling on his office. Sheriff Bartlett.
Yeah, that's great, Supervisor Hoatling. It's good to have, and I agree on all that. Budgets are tight. The state of New York data tracking is totally outdated. They did just come up with a new one. Actually, they did a presentation at our conference last week, and it's well over $100,000. And I had said to them, SJS right now, it's free. Why now all of a sudden are we being charged? Because you've updated.
Dave,
and
you're
have
picking
this
up. We
system.
can't hear you.
Why are we being charged now? And the guy's answer was,
Oops. Oh, how do I get rid of
so
somebody?
runs anywhere from, if we're going to, yeah, I'm in a bad spot. I apologize. That's why I don't have video either. So that's what we're facing as far as data. I agree with Mr. Hall on
Yes.
tracking other.
Yes, I did. I accidentally hit. I was trying to get over it. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Am I good still?
Yep, you're good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. And so I agree with Mr. Hall, because there's so many other ethnic populations that we need to make sure and look at. So it's needed, but again, it costs money. Low end, well over $100,000. High end, $1.2 million. We've looked at all these different things because for years the state has been so far tracking stuff. So we're more than willing and more than it's needed. I don't know what's more to say. And we'll do the best we can to help. But like Supervisor Hoatling said, we're extremely understaffed and we've got a lot of work going on. But, you know, I'm going to give it 100% no matter what we have to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Bartlett. Supervisor Bury, did you want to weigh in with anything here? I've been doing a lot of talking.
No, I think you're doing a fine job. You're outlining exactly where we need to go. I think that, we start with the camera policy. And as you said, once we finish that, then we can start moving on to other things. Maybe we'll have more information from the state. I also agree with Mr. Hughes. He made an excellent point. There were things in here that we are going to do no matter what the state says. Sheriff agrees, so we can start picking away at those things. I have a feeling this is going to be, this particular panel is going to be around for a while, to get these things done. If camera policy is going to take 4 months, then I'm looking, it's going to take a long, long time to get through all of these things. And it may take us a long time to figure out what the time frame is going to be with some of these things too, right? We can't overload anybody on this panel with these ideas that we're going to get things done, say by Christmas time. It would be nice, but as I made a point at the reform panel itself, we got to be slow and deliberate when we do the right. Okay, and so we're here, and that's what we're going to start doing.
Awesome. Thank you. One other thing too on body camera policies, Captain Bray and Sheriff Bartlett, I believe we would want whatever the body camera policy ends up being to also mirror your current policy for the in-car cameras. So would it be possible for you to send Sherry what that current car camera policy is that would also get sent out to this panel and DA Chaika and PD Zoni? And then we would be able to see, what's currently in the cars, the temporary policy for body cameras, and Michael's document, and kind of compare all three?
Yeah, I would like both policies, and they should mirror each other. For those of you who don't know, when I became sheriff, we didn't have any in-car camera systems at all. We slowly, over time, because everything costs money, implemented that, and now I'm proud to say every marked patrol car you see on the street has audio and visual in it. So they absolutely need to coexist and combine together as one policy overall. Captain Bray, anything you want to add in there? Because you're absolutely instrumental in making these policies.
No. Okay. Do you mind sending your current car camera policy to Sherry so she can send it to the committee and the DA and the PD?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Perfect. So I think, and then we can move on from body cameras because I think we all need time to read everything, digest it. For our next meeting, we'll do a deep dive start into camera policies, and we'll have 3 documents: the current car camera policy, the current temporary body camera policy, and Supervisor Chimidi's document. And between now and then, everyone can really go through, make notes, and we can just go line by line and start having, in-depth discussions of, what we think and why we think it, and, what might work, and just having kind of an open conversation. I did have one more thing to talk about, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page with body cameras and that works for everyone, that next meeting we'll start a deep dive into that.
Yes.
Okay. So the one question I have, and this might be more for you, Supervisor Bury, as co-chair, but I also want the input of everyone else because I think this has to do with kind of the administrative piece and also Sherry's input. There are some really good kind of tracking programs. One that I'm familiar with is called Asana. There's one called Notion, and a little bit more in depth than Google Docs, which I also do use a lot. It really allows us to kind of mark what the tasks are, when we think they're, who's going to take on which part. And I think it could be really helpful, maybe not immediately because the body camera policy we're just going to dive into, but when we look at the whole police reform policy and we get approval from the state and we're really looking at 12 different items and who's overseeing what, I would be happy to volunteer to start a program like that, enter a little bit of initial data and tracking to share with everyone so you can all see how it works and see if it's something that people are comfortable using as a tracking mechanism, just to make sure we're staying on task and that we're clear with what we're doing, who's doing what. I've had great success here in the town utilizing it, and I just wanted to see if, I'm not going to put the time into developing it if people are not open to it. We don't have to commit that we're definitely going to use it, but at least we're open to it. Let me do a trial run with a few of the items and send it out to everyone to see.
Is there a cost attached to these programs?
There is not. There are paid versions that do a lot more, but the free versions will be sufficient for what we're looking to do.
To me, it sounds like a good idea, but I want to go back to something you said and ask, working on about a dozen different things at the same time. Are we really going to take on 12 different tasks or 12 different issues at one time, or is that what we're looking to do?
No, I probably
I thought
missed.
we were going to knock them off
One at a time.
one at a time. You know, this one will take, just 2 meetings. That one will take 3. Because
Yes.
if we're going to start with, okay, we're going to talk to you about these 4 different things today. We're going to have 2-hour-long meetings, and then we're going to have memos going back and forth. I want to try and keep it direct and simple if I can. I like the idea of the program. Please share it. We'll see how we could use it. But I'm afraid of 12 issues at one time.
I did misspeak, and I do apologize, and thank you. When I say
No,
it doesn't,
okay. It's okay. You clarified it. No need to apologize. I appreciate it.
I guess broadening right now we're just focused on body cameras. When we broaden the vision to more items, we can track what we're doing first, second, third, where we're at with them. One might overlap with another. So we might be talking about data which then directly relates to training, or data which then directly relates to another item in the plan. And the software allows us to correlate and overlap so that, we've checked this box off on this task, and now that also checks this box off on this other task. So thank you for clarifying. I don't want to work on a dozen things at once.
You clarified it. Thank you. Okay, good.
I'm ambitious, but not that ambitious. Yeah. That was all I had to bring up today, but I want to turn to you, Supervisor Bury, and all the other members if there's other discussions for today before we delve into body cameras next time.
One thing we forgot to talk about at the beginning of this, when we're setting up our standing date and our time, is how much time are we going to devote to an individual meeting? My preference is that a meeting should not last longer than an hour. Unless, we really need to go beyond that. I'd like to see us get everything done that we need to get done within an hour. And I am not embarrassed to add a meeting early because we have nothing left to talk about. Okay? We're all very, very respectful of your time. So if we're done today after 35 minutes, that's fine with me. Okay? We'll see you next time with those 3 documents. But let's hear from the other panel members. I am one of 6.
Would be in favor of capping the meeting at an hour.
This is Dave. I love that idea.
Sheriff agrees.
Cool.
Yeah, agreed. One other thing that I would like to bring up, and I don't have any specific names at this point, but as we get to different tasks, I wanted to also throw out there, is this committee, everyone has their different skill set, but I don't know that anyone on here is an expert in data analysis. Maybe they are. Is everyone open to inviting in to some of the meetings? So let's say we have a meeting focused on body cameras and there's somebody that has a lot of expertise in that field, or we're talking about data analysis and there's a professional that offers, their expertise to come in and talk to us and let us ask questions and present. Are we open to occasionally inviting in experts in certain fields as we talk about certain topics? Because I think that would be important, especially if there's things we're talking about that none of us have those specific expertise in.
I'm not sure
So
that
for me-
go ahead, Mr. Hughes.
I'm sorry, Supervisor. I would say for me, if we were inviting anybody, certainly you would want to lean towards your elected officials first. But if we were inviting someone in, we certainly would want to make it clear, and the sheriff was clear to us that he's the person in charge of policies. We would want to make clear to anyone that we were inviting in that is strictly on the recommendations level only, and really are recommendations to us, who would then make recommendations after we vet their information. We would make recommendations to the police committee. So they would be coming in as maybe experts, or maybe have information that we would like to vet further. That's where I could see it coming into play.
I'm a little bit more reluctant about this particular thing because, a couple of us are true civilians here, and we have other people that are experts in law enforcement, and they've got the background in these topics. And I would defer to how they feel about bringing in someone who might contradict a position that they take when they've been doing this stuff for 35 years. So if the sheriff's office or the DA or the PD said, well, you know what, we don't have the kind of expertise here, we would welcome an opportunity for somebody to come in, I'd go with that. That would be fine. But I think they have to take the lead on that particular thing out of respect.
Dave,
Yeah,
your hand's raised.
Yeah, I think, if there's someone who knows something more about a topic than we do, it will make our work better. And I apologize for the noise behind here. It will make our work better if we consulted experts. But I agree. I think we don't want to be second guessing the professionalism of the law enforcement professionals that are among us. Obviously, we can't be second guessing experts, but I think if we can find an expert or a specialist in an area that's going to help inform our decision making, not so much as policy, but just to tell us a little bit more about a particular topic, I think it would just make us that much smarter as a group.
Sheriff Bartlett or Gary Graziano?
Go ahead.
Gary, go ahead first. Gary?
Yeah, I'm on the fence with this. I think we should do a wait and see. I think we've got enough topics going on here, and when we're on the topic, if bringing somebody else in to assist us in a specific topic would be helpful, and we agree on that, then I would go with that. But just to do it in a blanket form, I'm not so sure I'm with that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I think it's very important that we are respectful on this call with between them more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. And to my mind, when we talk about the possibility of bringing an expert to help us, that sounds almost like there's a contentious issue here, and the civilians are looking to tell law another opinion, and this person's opinion is more valuable than yours. And if I'm misreading it, then I apologize for that, but that's how it's coming across to me. So I'm not even on the fence with it. I'm going to take a back seat, and if law enforcement says, hey, let's bring somebody in, then that's fine. I think it has to be their call.
Yeah, and just to clarify, for example, data analysis, that's an area where I heard Sheriff Bartlett say, we would like support. So I don't know that anyone here is a data analysis expert. I know I'm not. So when we got to that, I would think it would be important. And I agree with you, Supervisor Bureau. I don't think it should be, if Sheriff Bartlett is saying no, that we should force it. But I do think it's important to hear, and even in the data analysis field, I don't know, maybe you'll have two different professionals that tell us two different things, and I'd like to hear from both of them. So that's just my take, is I'm always open to hearing more perspective, especially from, and definitely law enforcement. Sheriff Bartlett and Captain Bray are the professionals. So when we're talking specifically about policies and these other things, but I think there's probably areas where, Sheriff Bartlett and Captain Bray might say, yeah, we want to analyze the data, but, we're not IT people. So let's find out what the different options are and what we can utilize. So that was more what I was going towards. If it came across incorrectly, I do apologize.
I appreciate the clarification. Yeah, that makes sense. If we have something like data collection that's not law enforcement related, you know what I mean? That is tangential to what we're talking about. I understand in the reform document we're talking about data collection, but it has nothing to do with law enforcement tactics or strategies or any of that. So thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Chairman Morrell, you had. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
No, the chairman is going to speak. Let him.
Okay. Just a thought. I mean, based on the plans that I were able to see parts of from other counties, just about every county had the same concern about data that we did. And I think that DCJS, who is now collecting the data and then putting it back out to the counties, is seeing that as well. It may be helpful at some point in the near future to ask someone from DCJS or their data people to come and speak to us to see if they're planning any changes in terms of data. Right now we we're pretty much within the boundaries of what DCJS asked us to report on, and then they put the data back out. So I think they're looking at changing their data as well. So it may be worthwhile having them come in one of these calls and talk to them about that at some point in time. How do you feel about that, Sheriff or Captain Bray?
Yeah, again, DCJS with the SJS system and it being so old, and we just spoke to the guy. Well, I just spoke to the guy last week, and they're going to want to charge for it now. A couple questions: are the state police charging for it? Because the state police were totally exempt from this process that we're doing right now, and it's just another unfunded thing that we have to take care of. While we're on data, we're none of us, as far as I know of, and I don't mean to offend anybody, a data expert by any means, but I do agree with Supervisor Beery that there's a lot of self-proclaimed experts out there that say that they are, and we have a lot of pretty smart people on this line. We have supervisors, we have the district attorney, years of experience in law enforcement there, as well as the police officers. So we do have a lot of experts here right away, which we're very fortunate.
So, for me, Supervisor Berry, I know brought up and want to contradict the sheriff or the long-standing that we have, and I totally agree with that. But I also do think that when we're talking about experts, I certainly don't want to challenge the sheriff on law enforcement, but there are policy issues that I see here, and I'm gonna give you one for example. And I don't want to get us too far in the weeds as of yet, but when we're talking about racial diversity, quite frankly, I don't see any that would have the background to talk about some of the new techniques and policies that we're putting forth to address that issue. And that's where you would want to look to an expert in an outside agency that could bring us into the 21st century.
I agree with
I'm not disagreeing with you, Mr. Hughes. I don't disagree with you on that at all. Okay. As I said, as a general rule, we should have an understanding that, where we're going to bring in experts and when, and that would be a perfect opportunity to bring somebody else in. Make it clear that I didn't think that it would be fair for us, for the civilians who are running this show, to bring in experts, just to test or to stretch or to contradict what these experts on this panel are going to have to say.
Totally understood.
That's all.
Totally understood.
Yeah. I thank you for that point.
I do agree completely, and that was not my intention. So if it came across that way, again, that was not what I meant. I guess I wasn't looking for like a blanket authorization that we could bring in any expert we wanted. I just wanted to bring it up as a conversation starter of like, are we open to it? And it sounds like everyone, including Sheriff Bartlett, is open to if and when certain issues come up and it seems appropriate, that then we would make that decision, to potentially bring someone in at the next meeting or at the following meeting. And we could work together as a group to decide who that person is. Are they really an expert? Are they a self-proclaimed expert? What perspective do they bring?
Agreed. One day at a time.
Right. Agree with you, Supervisor Hoatling. Very well said.
So anything else, again, as Supervisor Beery said, we don't have to take the whole hour, but we do have 15 more minutes. Are there any other topics of discussion that anybody wants to bring to the table today? Okay, so our next meeting is Tuesday, June 1st at 1 p.m. Sherry will send out, Sherry, you could just send out a regular, repeats every first Tuesday of the month and we can accept it so it just shows up on our calendar.
Yep, I can do that ahead of time. And then I'll send out a reminder the day before.
Perfect, thank you. And then everyone will receive 3 documents, the current car camera policy, the temporary body camera policy, and Supervisor Chimidi's document, and we'll come on June 1st ready to dive in to that.
Also too, please go through that Google Doc and, make notes, and feel free to put notes in there on your own. Just so we can, that's where you can start doing, do it as a worksheet basically, so that you can get your ideas out there. And again, if we have to address it at a meeting, then it's there.
Great.
Okay.
Supervisor Bury, anything else?
I don't have anything else. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Thank you,
Well,
everybody.
Thank you,
Do we
everyone.
Thank you.
officially-
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Do we need to do a motion to adjourn, or can we just be done?
Oh yeah, you should do a
Motion adjourned.
motion.
Motion adjourned.
I'll second. Thank you all.
Got it, Osvaldo? We're almost there.